621. So just announced today by the company that's the second largest health insurance company, Anthem, that they've just experienced a cyber attack, the biggest one that's known in history against a health insurance company. We're now joined by Brian Krallis. He's a cybersecurity expert at SurMD, SurMD.com. Brian, great to have you here.
Hey, great to talk to you.
Yeah, this has got to be right along your pathway. This kind of an attack. What now? In terms of the work you do, is it to basically protect against this kind of a thing?
Yeah. So what we specialize in, we actually have a cloud security. A lot of what HIPAA and the government is pushing is they're pushing physicians and they're pushing hospital entities to store data on a secure cloud as opposed to on physical laptops. Things that can be stolen. It also removes some of the risk from employees, which is a lot of cybersecurity risks take place there.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we do. We work with hospitals, physicians, that type of thing, storing data.
Interestingly enough, this attack, though, did not have anything to do with HIPAA. This is the medical information, right? They were going for personal information. Why do you think that was?
Well, what's really interesting, and I think that's a great question, is why do they want this data? There's three reasons. Number one, healthcare data on the black market is sold at about 10 times the price of what a stolen credit card is. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, insurance fraud is much harder to prove than, for example, credit card fraud. The other thing is once they have your insurance information, they have your name, they have your social, they have your address, now they can do identity theft. And the third one is now on this case, they did not have healthcare tied to that personal information, but if they can grab that also, they can also create scenarios where potential blackmail, right? You have a CEO or a high-profile type person that may have some what could be considered questionable or embarrassing healthcare issues.
Right.
And so they can, in essence, create blackmail. So it's those three reasons that's why they want the information.
And from what I heard, though, they actually did not access medical info. They just got the social security numbers, addresses, names, that kind of thing.
They got all the personal information. And so, yeah, and they're thinking it's in the tens of millions. Right. Which is just a huge breach.
Yeah, I heard something like 80 million customers. What's the fallout of this going to be, do you think?
Well, I think what we're going to start to see, and I think we've seen it, but we're seeing a stronger and stronger push in the private sector to protect data. I think the government, I'm not saying they're perfect, but I think they've seen this for a while. My I guess philosophy in this, or why I think this is happening, and it's so much in the news, is I think there's a big disconnect between what I call those in power. Let's say the majority of CEOs in this country in late 50s, early 60s, they really didn't grow up in a digital age. And all of a sudden, now they have chief technology officers, maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, saying, hey, we need budget for this, we need budget for this. And they don't necessarily understand why they need to put millions of dollars into this thing that's not their core business.
Really? Are they simply not funding this as a priority?
I think that's really what part of the problem is, and I think they're waking up now to a new reality, and that is they're going to have to put money into this segment that really isn't their core business because of the ramifications of personal data. It's one of those things that they're waking up to right now and really trying to understand.
Okay, and so if you're one of these 80 million customers of Anthem, what's going to happen now? I mean, Are you going to have issues with your personal identity being stolen, that kind of thing?
Potentially, and I think those members are going to have to be very vigilant, and they're going to have to watch their personal information and really track to see if they potentially could be victims of cybersecurity, and identity theft.
Right.
Tell
me this.
The only solution is go to the FBI, which is a problem in of itself.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. I'm talking to Brian Krallis with SurMD.com. Do you really think this kind of thing is stoppable? I mean, or is it just a matter of if a company gets targeted this way, they're going to get the info at some point?
I'm going to say yes and no. I think all if you look at crime, you can't be 100% immune from crime, right? It's just not possible. But there are things we're doing. For example, like I told you, we do cloud security. We do something called double encryption. What that means is we put it on the cloud, and we believe that anything is hackable. So the way we store it is that the only person that's storing the data can actually make sense of it. They have an encryption key. So even if a hacker got in, it would be like alphabet soup. They wouldn't know how to make sense of it.
Wait,
so
are you saying Anthem didn't? You're saying Anthem did not have? You don't think they had this encryption technology in place themselves?
No, they did not. So they were basically hacked. The information was kind of very easy to read and decipher. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think we're getting there. We're coming up with some creative solutions on how to encrypt the data in which hackers can't do anything with.
Yeah.
And I think that's the future.
That's amazing. So why would they have not encrypted the data, do you think?
You know, I think, I don't know. I guess that would be a question for them. But I think one of the problems that companies are facing is that it is so expensive, right? When you look at this technology, you look at servers, and it's changing on a daily basis. And I think that's one reason why the government's really pushing kind of cloud security, because the normal physician, the normal hospital, they're just not going to be able to keep up. But if a company's sole purpose is security, right, then that's all they do is kind of protect data, then they're probably going to be much better at that because that's their core business.
Yeah, you're saying they could basically do all the upgrades and then 2 months later they've got to start over and reset things?
Yeah, you know, or they're constantly trying to kind of stay up to date when that's not their core business. You know, if their whole core business is, let's say, seeing patients and treating patients, they're never going to be cybersecurity experts. So, you know, the idea is, you know, launch that off, put that off to a cybersecurity team, and let them focus on that. I just don't think it's scalable when you think about where we're going in the rate of technology for a lot of companies to kind of do this on their own.
Yeah. Do you personally take precautions with your own information online or somehow monitor your security in terms of your own personal data being out there?
I do. There's a couple things that I do, for example. Number one, passwords are a big thing for me. I kind of get on my soapbox. Don't use the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Use something that's very unique, very difficult to replicate. The second thing is public Wi-Fi. It's just, you can't, I don't have anything against public Wi-Fi. You can, you know, search the internet, look at the news, but do not go onto any site that you wouldn't want somebody else to see on the public Wi-Fi. But if you do those two things, you're going to be relatively safe. Like I said, you can't be 100% immune, but you can protect yourself.
Do you sign up for these identity protection services? Or?
You know, I don't. I just try to do some safeguards, and I, you know, kind of routinely check things that are important to me. You know, and outside of that, like I said, I don't think you can live a life where you can be 100% immune. I just think you have to make yourself not be a target. Okay,
so 80 million people have their information taken. Does that mean they're all now vulnerable, or are they? Is it typically that most of them are not going to be affected over time?
You know, we don't know. Let's be specific here. I think there are 80 million members of this insurance group. We're not sure how many were hacked. We think it's in the tens of millions.
You're right.
But still, tens of millions is, you know, even hard to put your head around. We really don't know. I mean, you know, we heard when Target was hacked a year ago, some people were affected, some people weren't. But it becomes a very problematic solution because you don't know how long that data is sitting out there. And we're not even sure if they're really going to truly be able to catch who did this.
Well, that's the crazy thing. They don't know what they took. They don't know who took it, right? I mean, it's essentially all they know is that something happened here.
Exactly. And, you know, these cybersecurity, you know, experts aren't, you know, they're not hackers. They're not dummies, right? And they're going to make it very difficult to track who they are. And really, and that's one of the problems is they're typically these sophisticated attacks. They're not a dumb 14-year-old. You know, this is a sophisticated way in which they did this, and it's going to be very difficult to catch them.
And it seems like they always bring the experts in after the attack. That's when they come in to find out how it happened, right? They try to figure that part out.
They try to. It's not easy, right? Because they're typically, it's not like they're going to launch this from their own computer, right? They're going to go through 3 or 4 or 5 different computers, and typically they're going to launch the attack from the person that they hate the most. And that's kind of how they're, you know, how they operate. And so it's very difficult to actually see who is behind it.
It's Brian Krallis, a cybersecurity expert with SurMD.com. That it's SurMD.com, and they are experts at these security issues. Brian, great to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. Take care.
Yep.